To the Devil's Advocates may cause erections lasting more than 4 hours. If so, immediately call your friends and tell them to listen. The Devil's Advocates on the Mike 92.1 and the Mike921.com.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocate Show. Today we are discussing the Madison Police Department shooting to death a gentleman by the name of Paul Heenan in the Baldwin Street neighborhood. Had Rob Kennedy, one of the neighbors there, on the show to discuss the circumstance. Hopefully that is a circumstance that is bringing that Baldwin Street neighborhood together. But I want to finish with a few thoughts, Dominic. Just for the record, Heenan's coat was 24 to 42 inches apart when Heenan was shot, according to ballistics tests. And the state standard for drawing a handgun and confronting suspects for police department. A handgun may be removed from its holster in the performance of duty under the following circumstances. When an officer reasonably believes that the potential for an authorized use of deadly force may exist, when it is necessary to secure in a safe place or check the serviceability of the weapon. I mean, it is a very low standard.
Right,
Dominic.
right.
So don't mean to bore you with the details of, administrative code. But all the Madison Police Department said is, based on current code, based on this very low standard, this officer met it and therefore has been, in essence, exonerated as a justified shooter. And, the neighborhood is not happy. We got callers holding. Let's get to Chris. Chris, welcome to the Devil's Advocates. What do you got for us today?
I'm really mad at you guys because you didn't give me the Lewis Black ticket. I'm going to forgive you this one next time you're on the line. I have a Madison police story to share with you, and this is really important stuff for a lot of reasons, and they have some serious endemic deep problems. I rented a room in a house on Bedford Street. This was about 7 years ago when I first came to Madison. And a month after I rented out the room, the owner of the building got a contract with the state of Wisconsin to house violent felons in the building. Never mind, this is in co-ed land. This is just stupid. And the backyard of my house abutted the backyard of the house that Brittany Zimmerman moved into eventually. The felons in our house not only had the biggest drug lords in Madison selling cocaine and heroin and marijuana and everything else out of our living room, but they also were letting all of the homeless people from Birmingham Park crash in our house. I was repeatedly assaulted and robbed, could never get a police report through on anything. They never arrested anybody. On one occasion, I reported a battery drug deal gone bad and got arrested. I called the police. On a second occasion, I was twice robbed and called the police, and I got arrested a second time. The first time I pled it out because I just wanted to get out of jail. But I let the court commissioner and the district attorney in the court know what was going on.
Chris, real quick, just so I'm clear and the listeners are clear, you were in a drug transaction and were assaulted.
No.
Okay.
I was not assaulted in the drug transaction. I locked myself in my bedroom and called the police, and the police didn't show up for 45 minutes, and when they did, I was not belligerent. I just said, yeah, I called you 45 minutes ago, and somebody could be dead, So I got arrested. Anyway, the long and short of the story is that one of the people that was hanging out at the house was the kid that killed Joel Marino. And my suspicion is that I have in my paperwork the name of the person who may have killed Brittany Zimmerman. I called the liaison for the downtown police station who came over to my house when my bike got stolen and took a police report. Nobody ever got investigated or reported. Apparently, I called Mike Verveer, who was not only district attorney but my alderman at the time. He sent the building inspector over to the house. I got evicted because I had raised too much havoc for the landlord. And the only justice I got in this was that when I went into court, I believe it was Judge Sini, bless her soul, took my information, because I went in with 167 top copy pages of felony assaults, drug dealing, burglaries, et cetera, witness tampering, rapes by the people that were coming and going in this house. And I put it down on the desk, and she told the landlord to sit down and shut up. And she said there wasn't anything she could do for me, basically.
Chris, thank you very much. That is certainly an interesting story. I mean, I don't want to undermine the police force of Madison, Wisconsin. That is not our goal in today's show. And I'm sure that there is some validity in the story that Chris just told our listeners. But I want to concentrate a little more here on perhaps the one thing she did say, which is she called 911 and there was a 45-minute response time. Without going too far afield, Sheriff David Clark in Milwaukee County just last week, Dominic, told the people of Milwaukee County it's time for them to take an active participatory role in their own personal safety. And, it sounded a lot like go buy a gun. That's what it sounded like to me, Dominic. Well, David Clark, the sheriff of Milwaukee County, has gotten a lot of mileage out of this, and in fact was on Piers Morgan last night with Tom Barrett, was he not?
He was. He was on CNN last night, and it was interesting to see, again, being a guy who lives in Milwaukee County, these two go at it. And I got to tell you, I wouldn't be surprised if the sheriff goes after the mayor's job going forward. But we do have a couple of clips. One of them is the sheriff explaining to the national audience at CNN what the situation was.
There's an emerging situation in the Milwaukee area. Fewer and fewer law enforcement resources, and I'm not going to be afraid to engage the citizenry in eminent circumstances, not in all circumstances, and I gave examples in that ad to take their personal safety as an individual responsibility, and that there are certain things they can do when 911 is not available to them, and those are decisions that they have to make.
Folks, you are listening to the Devil's Advocate Show. We are discussing the shooting of Paul Heenan here in the Madison market, and also the greater role of guns, police, self-preservation,
personal safety.
Talking about David Clark and Tom Barrett going back to back last night on CNN with Piers Morgan.
As that conversation continued, the sheriff started to discuss the furloughs that were going on in his department.
The mayor submitted a budget this year that furloughs 1,500 police officers 3 days each. That's 4,500 fewer officer hours to be spent patrolling and responding to calls for service. My agency itself, the county, had to lay off 42 officers last year.
The sheriff talked about furloughs. We've talked to the police chief. The police chief has assured us that there will be absolutely no reduction in coverage as a result of the furloughs.
So now what you have is, the county sheriff who made this commercial, telling people to take their own responsibility, to be responsible for their own safety, maybe mischaracterizing the fact that these furloughs that he's referring to for the city of Milwaukee is not going to actually affect the boots on the street, that in effect they would rotate them through so that it would be, during the office times, as it were.
Well, I don't think that it enhances the safety of the Milwaukee County citizens to find out, there's 4,500 furlough hours, but this is the economics of public service, is it not, Dominic?
It certainly is.
When you've got diminishing public budgets, you got to make do with less resources. But it's scary to think if you call 911 in Milwaukee County and Madison, you may not get the response you're hoping for.
Well, no question about it. The sheriff went on to say, mention an incident that happened with the mayor a few summers ago.
Several summers ago, you were involved in an incident where a tire iron wielding suspect beat you within inches of your life. I'm sure that if you had a gun and a plan that day, the outcome would have been a little different. I'm asking that law-abiding citizens who make the decision that they see their personal security as their individual responsibility in a like situation can respond as they see fit.
Now, during that situation, that was during the state fair in West Allis, and the mayor, who's a big fella, he's a tall guy, got into an altercation with the gentleman who was arguing with, I believe, his child's grandmother, and there may have been some
came to the aid of a woman
Correct.
Who was in distress.
And the suspect, proceeded to pull out a tire iron and beat the mayor. And, the mayor had some serious damage done to his hand, presumably for protecting himself from the swings of from a tire iron. And, the only reason, to my understanding, that this altercation stopped is because the guy stopped beating the mayor. It didn't stop because the police intervened. It didn't stop.
No, you're a little off on this, as I understand the accounts, as I read them earlier today. The guy, in fact, did stop because he heard sirens approaching. There was a rapid response to this 911 call that I believe Tom Barrett's niece made, and the perpetrator did first approach his niece, heard the sirens, and then ran off, was arrested the next day in an alley waiting for a ride, apparently. If I were Tom Barrett last night on the air with Sheriff David Clark, I would have been the one pulling the tire iron. It was really bothersome to me that Piers Morgan did not allow the mayor an opportunity to respond, because what was a very heroic act on behalf of Mayor Tom Barrett was characterized as an act of weakness by Sheriff David
Clark. Yes,
Jagoff, whatever his name was.
But here's the thing, Crudy. If instead of the mayor who intervened in this situation, it was some concealed carry person who ended up shooting this guy dead, then you'd be saying, would that person then be the hero, Michael?
Let's get to Jennifer waiting on the phones. Jennifer, welcome to the Devil's Advocates Show. Thanks for your call today.
Hi, guys. Thanks very much.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi. I just wanted to make a comment in regard to your first caller who made a sweeping generalization about my neighborhood. I live in the Willie Street neighborhood, and of course we are not all anti-gun. I believe we are all anti-violence, and this is very significant to me because this happened a few blocks from my home, and I know a lot of the people that are involved that are still living in that neighborhood. Now, I drive a cab in Madison. I deal with potentially hostile people all the time, and it's. I probably could have tipped this guy over. I think 3 shots was incredibly excessive, and it's just unfortunate that this happened because it could happen to anybody. And what I want to know is what the MPD plans to do about their procedures so this doesn't happen again.
I don't know if that plan's been offered, Jennifer.
Well,
but this is one thing that I think the entire city of Madison needs to know.
Okay, thank you very much for your call, Jennifer. We got to move on to a break here, but it's a concern for all of us, Dominic. The safety of our families in our homes. If nowhere else, our home is our castle. Isn't that?
Yes.
All of this effort to give us the right to protect ourselves.
We have the right. There is no giving of the right.
Castle doctrine. I don't see this as a grassroots thing, Dominic. I see it coming from ALEC as prepackaged legislation. Folks, we're the Devil's Advocate.